The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
Answering Legal is staffed with trained professionals who know how to handle legal calls in a professional, courteous manner. And that provides a positive experience to callers. The receptionists are trained and understand the type of calls that our firm is getting. They can answer frequently asked questions. They can take messages. They can schedule appointments. And that allows us to, one, promptly respond to our client, and two, we have a record. That is probably the most crucial part of this business.
Welcome to another episode of the Earley Show podcast, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. As always, we have a real treat for you. Today we have Darryl Isaacs, the Hammer. Darryl has succeeded greatly in this space. He is a personal injury lawyer we can all learn a lot from. He's in a few different states. He's going for it. He is very successful. I want to learn from him, and we're going to chop it up with him. So I'm sure, as always, we'll have a lot of writer-downers. So sharpen up those pencils, all right? It's going to be a lot of fun. Darryl, thanks for coming on, man. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. But first, I got to give you a disclaimer. I have failed so many times. But I get back up. But I guess Zig Ziglar, I studied and said, the greatest teachers are the ones that fail the most. And I thought, I'm qualified. I fail a lot.
I'm in that category too. So, you know, we met at your conference last year, and I enjoyed, we'll get into it, but I enjoyed what you talked about from the stage. And I like that you're all in, right? You're going for it. You have been for 30 years. But if you could just take us back, I always like to start from the start. If you could just tell us, upbringing, mom and dad, how did they influence you to be the man you are today? What was it like growing up?
So, I mean, look, I had a dysfunctional family, so that might be 99% of America. I grew up, I had parents that loved me. My mom had a lot of mental issues, and my father was a very hard worker. His father died when he was 4, so he basically grew up without a father. And he was a hard worker. He was a pharmacist and then went back to law school at the age of 40. But growing up, he did things now. I mean, he did things back then that did me a favor. He would let me fall to the ground, and he would help pick me up. He didn't try to catch me and save me. And early on, he taught me a real important lesson. I had 3 older brothers, 7 and 9 years. There was twins, and I was the accident. But of course, my parents adored me. But I never forget one day when I was 5, 6, he said, because my other brothers were a lot older, he said, look, here's the deal. I pay for necessities. You want luxuries, you go to work. So I started delivering papers, and he taught me a lot, though. I did a lot of odd jobs, and that got me to where I am today. And so I'm very grateful for the upbringing that he didn't save me. He just picked the pieces up after I fell.
He supported your growth as a young man, but he didn't spoil you.
Right. He did. Now, it's ironic because there were 4 boys, and he went back, like I say, at the age of 40 to law school, and he worked and went to school at night. So the interesting thing was, at a young age, I started working, and, I'd play in the neighborhood, and that's where I got my sales and my service. I can remember when I was 6 years old, I'm collecting for the newspaper, and I saw how everybody thought, oh, he's this cute little kid. So I got this idea. I love donuts, and we had a Krispy Kreme donut. They're about 10 miles away, but you could buy a dozen for 50 cents. So I got this idea. I got my dad on a Saturday morning and said, will you take me up there? I'm going to get 10 boxes, and I'm going to go sell them for $2 a box. And he thought that was great, So I went, and the first 5 houses, I would take 2 boxes, and I would go to each door. Within 10 minutes, I made $15 because I sold 10 at $2, cost me, of course my dad paid and I paid him back. But that taught me, wow, I can make some money. I got to work So the following weekend, I did 100 dozen, and I sold them. So, but it just taught me, I started growing up, and I was bit by the entrepreneur bug, and so I don't know. It was a great upbringing, but it wasn't like most traditional upbringings.
Did I hear you say you were a paper boy?
I was.
So a lot of people that come on the show, like me and you, were paper boys. It's the funniest thing, man. It's just like a rule of nature. Like a lot of entrepreneurs back in the day were distributing newspapers,
So, Chris, and I'm not going to throw a question at you, but here's the interesting thing. Because I got 3 kids, there's no way at 6 or 7 or 8, I would let them go out by themselves, walk around 5 or 6 streets at dark, because we had something called the Courier Journal and Louisville Times. So I'd deliver 4 or 5 in the morning, and then I'd have to deliver. Now, I was so young, my brother, I had to get the paper route in my brother's name. I have a brother named Mark. But I mean, from the time till I was like 10 or 11, I delivered papers. And on Sunday, my dad would have to help me because it was so heavy, and he would get up, and I would appreciate it. But there's no way I would let my kids get up and do that now. It's not that I don't want them to work. I would love for them to work, and they're growing up in college. But just with all the stuff going on, with all the crime and everything back then, we didn't have social media. We didn't have cell phones. You didn't hear about it, even if it existed. But no, it's totally different today. But I wouldn't trade that past for anything.
No, I mean, that's, the tough times, failures, that's what imprinted you with resilience, and I relate to that. But what you just spoke about, I have a challenge because like my kids get things that I didn't get when I was their age. I don't want to spoil them. It's a tough thing of like not spoiling them, but giving them everything you can. I have challenges. My kids are young, 12 and almost 9. But like it's that thing of like I don't want to spoil you, but I want to give you everything, but not everything.
Well, it's just because you shouldn't.
Right.
But from a safety point, like cell phones, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 27.
Yeah.
Start practicing with a pager, and I had to pull over, and if I'm going from court or wherever I'm going, they had drive-through phones. I could put a quarter in.
Yeah, sure.
But I do like giving cell phones where we can track them because if they, so it's I wouldn't trade what I grew up for, but I don't think I'd want to grow up today with social media.
Me too. I know.
So I know, like you say, it's a challenge because you can afford to give your kids that, but you also want them to be appreciative. So
it's hard as hell.
Half of 6 does, I don't know.
Man. No, it's hard. So, you just, if we fast forward a little bit, you got through law school, and it seems like you just had this entrepreneurial knack. You became an attorney, and you were able to get cases, right? You seem like a guy who's very social, down to earth, get on clients' level. And if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't challenging for you when you first started to get cases.
Well, you have to know the background, if I may, and I don't want to talk too much.
No, go for it.
So, yes, I've always been personable and I guess likable. Not everybody's going to like you, but I had street smarts. I didn't have book smarts. I was not a good student. I tell people this because I want the world to know my story, because if one person hears it, if I can do it, anybody can. I mean, I flunked the bar twice. I was last. I was the only one that had to take it 3 times. Out of 121, I was 101. I wasn't top 100. But I took the LSAT 3 times to get in law school. And I always struggled, but I would work hard. So if you read it once, I'm reading it 10 times. Mm-hmm. But the reason I say that is I was fortunate. My father was an attorney when I came out, and I had a brother who was already an attorney. But I knew going in, they both made it clear, you're never going to be the one that's going to be top of the class, getting the big time 30th floor tower law firm jobs. So figure out what you want to do and go work for it. And so he did me a favor because, like, even the first year I was on probation, I got off. I literally went down to the courthouse for a week and followed all the attorneys. And I wanted to do trial work. So I said, who's in court all the time? And I found a gentleman who, if you remember the Laurel and Hardy show.
Sure, yeah, yep.
He was like the big heavy set with the toupee or whatever. Guy named David Kaplan. He's deceased. God rest his soul. He gave me the opportunity of a lifetime. I went up to him on a Friday. I watched him come out of court, and I'll never forget. I said, "Hi, Mr. Kaplan. My name's Darryl Isaacs. I'm a terrible student. I just got off probation, but I'm willing to learn, and I'll work for free. Would you teach me?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "You're hired, kid." He called her by kid. And literally the next day I show up on a Saturday, and he had all these people lined out the door. He did criminal law. At the time, he had tried a capital murder in like 38 states. So that's before the internet, but he had a really good reputation as far as, I mean, everybody, if you needed a good criminal attorney. So that first Monday of the summer, I sat through a week trial with him. I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, I thought he was going to fire me because I show up at court and he said, "Where's the 2 Baker boxes?" I was supposed to bring the Baker boxes, or banker boxes, wherever you call them, of the client stuff. I said, "Oh, was I supposed to bring those?"
Oh, my God.
And I said, "You want me to go back and get them?" He goes, "No, I don't need them." And he tried this case all week, and he won.
Wow.
And that was my first experience, and I fell in love with trial work. But I always had a knack with people. So I went to him and said, "Hey, can I get you some car wreck cases? Can I work on them?" And the reason I'm telling you this, because this is why it was easy for me when it came out. So back then, you could get accident reports and you could write letters. So I came up with a letter, wrote them to all the people in accidents, and I was signing up probably 2-3 cases a week for him. So I worked the personal injury, and I sat through 22 jury trials with him during law school. In fact, it took me 4 years because I kept working so much, so I kind of switched to night school. Mm-hmm. But when I came out, I flunked the bar twice. But I left him because he wanted to make me a partner and everything, but I didn't want to do criminal law. I love personal injury. And when I left him, and it took me a year to finally, took me 2 attempts, and on the 3rd attempt when I passed it, he called me one day and said, all these people want you, not me. Would you take them? And this was actually during when I was studying for the bar. So my father, he had a license, and I worked with him. But when I got sworn in October 16th, 1992, I probably already had 80 cases. And, why I'm telling people this is, if you go to law school, I assume people are already lawyers, but you don't have to get the top jobs. I think you get the experience. So even though he ended up paying me like $4 an hour, but I'd have worked for free because of the experience. And I think my first year out, I had 5 to 6, at that time, 6-figure settlements.
And this is the early 90s. This is the early 90s.
Yeah, this was
30 years ago.
90. It was 92. But I mean, within my second year, I'm not saying it's all about money, but I was already a millionaire. And then I started getting so much business. The first time I had like 80 in litigation. So while I traded the grades and the high towers, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because then I started growing and hiring attorneys and everybody to help me. And, it's been that way for 30 years. So I don't know. I don't want to make it about me, but I want to tell the average person.
No, that's a nice story.
You don't have to be the smart. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the world. It's, if you treat clients fairly and you work hard, good things happen.
Yeah, so there's a lot of lessons to unpack what you just talked about. So I love that story of starting from the floor and getting to where you are today, right? So what I hear is, I don't know about you, but no clients are asking me, "Hey, Chris, where'd you go to law school? What was your class rank? How many times did you take the bar?" I tell that to law students. People don't care, man. It's about like, Darryl, how are you going to help me out? I just had a wreck. How are you going to help me? It's all people care about. So you have that social and emotional intelligence to get on their level and show them that you're a decent dude. You're going to help them out. That's all they care about, right?
Well, can I interrupt you for one second? I did what I thought everybody did. When I first started interviewing people, "Hey, I just want to let you know I flunked the bar twice." Or out of 121, I wasn't top 100. And because I want to be honest. That's brutally honest.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the first $1 million client I got, or case. Guy looked at me and said, "I don't care about all that. Are you going to make me a lot of money?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I'm going to make you a lot of money. I'm going to work hard." So from that day forward, no one ever asked.
They don't care.
I signed up thousands of, back then, I was signing up thousands of cases. Not one asked. It was me that was volunteering. So, then I quit volunteering it, but I'm not afraid of it. I'm not embarrassed. But you're right. People just want to know, are you going to work hard? Are you going to do a good job?
That's all.
So usually the people that brag about where they rank are the ones that are trying to prove something. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just didn't want them to one day say, "Oh my God, you flunked the bar twice." I just wanted them to know, but nobody cared. And our firm's probably represented 50, 60,000. No one's ever asked where you ranked, how many times you passed the bar. No one cares.
And if they ask me that question, that may not be the right fit with me and that client. Because if that's what you really care, because all that matters is like you and I got in the club, we got our bar card. That's all that matters, right? And how can we help you, right? But if someone is grilling me on where I went to law school and my class rank, it's like they have the right. They can ask me that, but it's like I don't know how that's going to help their case. Like, let's talk about how I can actually help you,
right?
Instead of talking about the past. So, but I hear you on that. I tell law students, like I said all the time, like don't worry about that. Just it's all about like what you can do, right? You had to fight and claw your way into the profession. Now you're crushing it because of the easy things, which is like talking to people and just relating to them and being real with them and approachable.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this. So you've scaled the firm a lot. Let's just fast forward a little bit. How many people in the firm today?
Well, it's interesting because before this call, my CEO called me and said, "I need your permission. I need to hire 15 paralegals." And I thought, why? And he said, "The marketing's working too good." So we are actually, and I proved it. We got about 130, 140. I think I'm at 28 or 30 lawyers. We just don't have enough support staff and what they're telling me. Because what my role's changed, I decided I want to go back and try cases again. I don't want to run the day to day. So it's funny. I went and studied the Jerry Spence. I've been doing all kinds of stuff because I taught been teaching at TOU in different places. But I thought, man, I want to go back and do what I used to do. But we've got about 100, 20 or 30. But it's not about how big, because I don't want to keep growing and growing. What I want to do is just make sure we give the best service and the best. Last night when we just got another verdict, case. One of the lawyers actually too. I'm big on throwing everybody in the fire. Like one girl, it's her second trial. She's second chair. They just got a $600,000 verdict. I mean,
congrats.
I was talking to her like the day before. I'm a nervous wreck. I said, "Why?" I said, "Look. What's the worst thing you lose? You get up, you come back, we get better. If you win, we got to figure out what you did right. If you lose, we know what you did wrong.
Yep.
You can't be afraid to fail, and that's throw everybody in the fire." I mean, that's my first trial I lost. I mean, I'll never forget. I put this real attractive female. She kept winking at me and put her on the jury. And she became the jury foreman, and it was a horrible case to try. But I wanted to try anything to get to trial on my own. And I'll never forget, she taught me a lesson. Afterwards, she talked with us and said, "We all loved you. We loved everything, but you didn't believe in your case." And she was right. I was so worried about getting to court. I didn't really pay attention. It was a horrible case. I should have never taken it, but I wanted that experience. So when I win, I know what I did. I'm sorry. When I lose, I know what I did right. When I win, I don't know what I did.
Yeah, right. So you're all right. So that's a lot of people. And you're bringing in a lot of cases. So you're obviously a mass marketer, right? You're on TV, billboards, radio, all that. We just started doing billboards at my firm, and I'm pretty high in billboards right now. How aggressively are you marketing? Because you're bringing in a lot of work. Is there a lot of client referrals? Has your marketing spend percentage increased, decreased, stay the same, depending on what season you're in?
Okay, don't hate me. We reduced our marketing this year from last year by $3 million, and last month we signed up in 100 additional cases over our monthly average. This month we're on pace, so it's not a good problem to have. We're not ready for we basically went up 30% in 1 month. That's because we made a lot of changes and we fixed a lot of our intake. And that was yesterday's call. They want me to cut back more, and I'm not doing it. I'm like, look, I don't want to cut any more because we have a great brand name, and we'll load the wagon and you all figure out how to pull it. How many firms are dying for cases, and you're telling me we have so many I got to cut back? I'm just not willing to do that. Mm-hmm. What we have done, and so that's why I say don't hate me. normally every year I was spending more and more to get less and less. It's just we've spent 6 months reorganizing our firm, looking at the 6 verticals, realizing intake, we had a hole in our bucket.
Yeah.
So we I'm big about compassion and empathy, but my intake wasn't selling compassion and empathy.
Yep.
They were a factory. You call, it's like boom, 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 on to the next call. We stopped that. We went back to what we did 30 years ago. It's how I built my brand. And last month was like the first month in a while that when people called, they really were treated with empathy, compassion. And so now everybody wants to hire us. And what I've been forced to do, and I'm not wild about it, I had to send 100 files that we couldn't handle last month to other firms to work them. So, we do have some referral partners, but I don't think it, and everybody's going to listen, it's not how much money you spend. It's like anything else. There's a lot of things you can do. Like you mentioned billboards. I love billboards, but I don't think by themselves they work. I think you need some TV, some digital, a lot of stuff. And, I don't know if you do a lot of lead buying, get cases from generation leads. I'm not against it, but I want to, and I teach attorneys all the time, I want to show you that you build your own brand, whatever it is, because you're going to be your brand. I'm going to be mine. Morgan & Morgan's going to be theirs. I can't be anybody else. I got to be what I am. But whatever you decide your brand is, then you got to go promote it, live it, teach it. And then over time, when people realize who you are, then they're going to be coming for your brand. And that's kind of what we've done.
Okay, so they can't forget about you. You're everywhere. You're always around.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, and your message on your billboard. What's your message? You said you started doing billboards. What's your message?
Call early. Injured? ? Call early before it's too late.
Okay, that's not bad at all. Now, is your picture on there or no picture?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty new. I'm like 2 months in.
Okay. Good, because like there was an attorney I was helping in another state, and he had 30 boards, and he goes, I'm not getting any cases. So my first question is your picture on? He goes, no. Yeah. I'm like, that's your mistake. People got to see, feel, and touch you, as I say it. Like when I go out in Kentucky or Indiana, I get stopped all the time. I talk to everybody. You got to be like one of them. And I think billboards are a great way, but call before you're too late. So you've identified a brand. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
So many people get up there. It's like, I'll never forget, and I quote people that I don't come up with any of it. I just study and steal, as I call it.
Me too.
Remember in law school, you can't plagiarize, but once you graduate and someone files a motion in court, it's public. Now it's research. I can go copy that motion all day long. Think of like an archer. You always hear about William Tell and you're the greatest archer. I could be the best archer in the world if I blindfolded him or her and I spun him around in the opposite direction because I got a better shot. And my point is, how can you hit a target if you don't know what you're aiming at?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll get firms that'll call me, I want to advertise. Okay, great. So, tell me about, we start talking, who's your target audience? Like, I know who my audience is. I could tell you we're like 98% of our cases I know. So nowadays, like, with digital and you can buy zip codes and, I like my boards. I'll tell you this. I don't know if I have over 1,000 boards. I don't have any in the richest part of town. My rule is if there is a dry cleaning billboard, I don't want to be there because that's not my clientele. That's the 2%. So I'm going to be in, if there's 4 parts of a town, I'm not going to be in one of them. And I'm not discriminating. I just know if they're my friends or family, I don't want them as clients anyway. They don't need a lawyer. They need a shrink. And so they're not going to listen to me anyway. So I'm always in, the central part of town, the west part of town, the south, usually the east. It's not that I have clients still, but I don't want boards in there. So I don't know if you go through these different theories, but what I've learned over the years, and, I guess I've probably spent 100 to 200 million in advertising in 30 years. You learn trends. And how do we learn? I mean, I've made 7-figure mistakes. I made one during COVID and I ate it. And boy, I tell you what, when you when it's your money and you make some losses, you get smart quickly.
Yeah.
So I've just learned over the years what to do, what not to do. I don't know it all, and I could talk to you and learn from you. I learn from everybody, but there are patterns that we all need to follow. And we started talking about this brand thing. I think the best thing any attorney can do is find out what their brand is and then tell the world.
And keep telling it, right? And,
Yes.
and just keep. So you, I've seen you on social, and I feel like you've got a good social presence because you're not like a lawyer on social. You're just a dude, you know, talking about. I've seen you talking about like what you're eating for breakfast and stuff like that. Oh yeah, also I'm a lawyer. It's not like you're not like hiding in the shadows from, you know, you're obviously you're marketing yourself, but you're not doing it in a lawyer way, and I think that's good. You know, I oftentimes see you with like a football jersey, just like, you know, just a normal dude. And then people like that. I really feel like that. They latch on to that. It's like, oh, I got into a car accident. This guy, Isaacs, I keep seeing him. Oh, yeah, I saw him on social media. Let me call him. They're not going to call anybody else.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. And I mean, there's attorneys debate me all day long. There's one, I won't mention his name, but he's like, I don't get any case from social media. And I'm thinking, I do. Now, do I like social media? No. I think social media is the bullying of people because you see what you're not invited to. You see what you're missing out on. And it can make someone feel invisible. And I'm all about respect and love and compassion. And we help people every day with disabilities or people, you know. So, you know, we don't discriminate. I don't care your color, race, religion, anything. If you need help, I'm going to help you. But social media, what I've noticed, I started out doing what everybody else did. All lawyers get up there and say, hey, I'm a lawyer. I do car wrecks, trucks, call me. No one cares.
Right.
What people want to know is, you know, it's like, look at before COVID, because the car buying's different. When I used to go want to buy a car, I couldn't get out of my car without salespeople hitting me at my door. Let me get in the store and then you can sell me. Social media is the same way. People got to get to know you. You know, think about it. You run an ad on TV. They got to see it 10, 15. I don't know. When I started, the rule was they had to see it 7 times. It might be 70 now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But my point is, let people find out who you are, and then you can hit them up. I stopped doing lawyer ads like, hey, I'm a lawyer. Nobody cares. Then all of a sudden one day, you know, Claudia, the girl that does all my social media, came in and, you know, this is when we realized we were onto something. Like, what are you eating for lunch? And I told her, and she said, I thought you were on a diet. I said, I am on a diet. She's like, well, you're eating bread. I said, I'm not eating bread. It was croutons. We're debating. And then next thing you know, this thing blows up 300,000-400,000 views. And it's like, oh my gosh. So people want to know you. Then if you know, like now, you know, I think TikTok, and I think we're almost at 300,000. They've kind of shut me down for different reasons. But now I can do a target. I'm going to do a little TikTok video. But I think I got 20 wrongful death cases from my TikTok alone. Now, does that mean everybody's going to do it? No. When you mentioned something that made me think of the blue ocean strategy. Mm-hmm. What I would tell people is think of like LSAs. You know what LSAs are, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago when they came out, it was great. We were doing 60, 70 cases a month. Back it down. So you have this pond or lake. And what Google do every day, they start adding 1,000 lawyers every day. And before you know it, everybody's fishing in the same lake or pond, and there's less fish for everybody. Yeah. What I tell people is, why don't you go to the blue ocean that's big, experiment. Now, not everything I do works, trust me. If I do 10 ideas and one works, I'm excited because one might make me $1 million. The other 9 might lose me 50 grand, but I'm not going to know unless I try it. And I think you go to with the blue ocean strategy where no one else is, try something. And if it works, then they're following you. Otherwise, you're following them.
No, for sure, for sure. Well, you had referenced your accident, and you talked about that at your conference. Could you tell us, if you can, about your accident? What happened?
Oh, sure. So my father had cancer and prostate, and they helped removed it, but he kept every couple of years, like he had other complications, and so literally on January 19, 2015, he had a surgery, and they didn't know if he'd make it through. He made it through. They removed a big tumor out of his stomach. So, all this, where there's 4 of us, we all went, and we were there all morning, and they were going to admit him, from the recovery room. So we all were going to take shifts, and I'm a night owl. I don't really sleep much. I said, let me go home. I'll come back and take the night shift. So I went home, and it was Martin Luther King Day, and I loved road biking. Now, I wasn't good at it, but I liked it. And it had been cold for a couple months, so I didn't get to do it in Kentucky. I'd go back and forth from Florida, I could. So I thought, I'm going to go for an hour ride, and then I'll come back, shower, eat, and then go stay with my dad. Well, I go out for a ride, and I get hit by a car. So I ended up visiting Dad. We were at the same hospital. We did recovery. It was kind of a blessing. I know it sounds weird, but so I left thinking I'll be back in an hour, and I didn't come home for about a month. But, basically I was stopped on a road bike to turn. I had my arm out, and a 19-year-old kid wasn't paying attention, never saw me, hit me, and I went on, broke his windshield. I broke my neck. I was scalped. And then he catapulted me in the air, and I don't know how far. But at the end of the day, I've had 12 surgeries and all kinds of issues. But as crazy as this sounds, I mean, yes, I wish it didn't happen, but it's made me a different person. I think it's made me a better human being, a better father, better husband, better attorney, better everything, because I had taken life for granted, and it really opened my eyes.
So you, by virtue of that, you can really relate to your clients now. Like you could say, I know you're suffering. Now, you said something at your conference. I learned a lot at your conference. My biggest takeaway, I think, was when you got on stage and you said, when a client just tells you something really bad happened, you can't say, oh, okay, and then go on with the intake. Because I think you were talking about connect and saying, like, I can't imagine what that was like. I'm so sorry. Like, you can't presume to know. You have no idea.
And gosh, I got to give you credit. You listened to me. I used to tell this story to all, in fact, and I guess I shared the answer. But when I literally go and teach, think about this. Over the years, I've always signed up the cases I want, because what do people want when they call us? I mean, look, we're all like banks. There's millions of banks, and they all have within a certain percent. What separates a bank from other banks would be service. What separates us from other lawyers would be our service. But I realized early on, before my accident, what people want is when they call me, if and I'll give the answer, but my test used to be someone calls me and says, hey, I was in a horrible accident, I lost my leg, yada, yada. And as soon as they get done and they're waiting for a response, what's the first thing you should say?
I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
And that is a good answer. But one I think would be better is get on their level. What do they want? They want what we all want in this world. We want acceptance. So, like, I'll never forget one case. He was a friend, and he interviewed me. His wife was killed, and he talked to 5 lawyers. And I didn't presume I was getting it because I knew him. But it happened in another state, and I wasn't licensed in that state. And he didn't know if but I ended up bringing another lawyer licensed in that state, and we worked it together. But I'll never forget, as soon as he told me what happened, I did the only response that I could think of. I just said, I can't fathom what you're going through. And he stopped and he said, do you realize the other lawyers, they all said, I'm sorry, I can help you. I can get you a lot of money. You listened to my problem and you said, you put yourself in my shoes. And I said, well, that's what I would want someone to do for me. So I got the case. And I've always say that is, don't think like a lawyer. Think like a human being.
Right.
They just told you their dark, deep secret, and they're going through so much pain. And all I kept thinking is, I can't imagine what they go through. Now, given I've had a broken neck and I've had surgeries and all that, I have an understanding what they might be going through. If they lived. If they died, I don't.
Yeah.
But like 3 months after my accident, a mom called me and her daughter broke her neck. And all she wanted to know is, I know what she's going through. And so, yeah, I took the case, but I literally could walk her through everything I went through. And I never had that before. So, I've represented thousands of people, but I don't really know what they're going through before I went through it, because everybody's pain is real to them and their situation is. I'll give you another example. I mentioned, look, we're both lawyers. We both every night have food on our table. How many clients come in that they're living paycheck to paycheck? They may not know where, if they lost, all of a sudden they're hurt, they can't work. They might be getting evicted. Do you and I really understand what they're going through?
No idea, man. No clue.
So I think instead of being pretentious and say, I think the thing to do is just be real and honest with them. I mean, I've done that over and over. If someone loses a loved one, I have no idea what you're going through.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, you can say you're sorry all day long, but I just think the way to sign up these cases and to get them is have empathy and make them feel accepted. And then I always ask them, what do you need from me? Like, and I'm going to give you another example. There was a lady who lost her only child. Her husband had been dead, and her child did 2 or 3 tours, survived. She came to this country, and her English wasn't very good. She didn't drive. She didn't work, and her son worked at Lowe's, and he was killed in an accident. They overloaded the vehicle, and it flipped. And when she got to, they brought this to me, and I started talking, and I just let her talk. I mean, she was rambling on and on and on. And of course, I went through my empathy thing. And that's my first question is, what do you need from me? Because I'm sitting there thinking, the legal stuff will take care of itself. But you know what she needed? She wanted to go to the funeral home. She had no one to take her to the funeral home to make arrangements. So,
wow.
I had an attorney. It was in another state. So I had one of my attorneys that said, your job is going to be to go up there until her son is buried every day. You drive her to the store, you drive her whatever she needs, because, that's what she needed. And, we ended up, of course we got her, a great, great result. But at that time, that's what she needed. And, and I can't imagine losing the only person in my world. Like I say, we connected like it was very easy because I just was there for her, but I reminded her, please forgive me if I'm never going to be in your shoes at this particular moment. So you have to tell me what you need, what you're going through, because I don't know what you're going through.
Well, the way you handle that is the only way that's the best you can handle it. Like, because you don't know, and you're admitting that you don't have that, you have no idea. And that's the best way you can handle it. What I do also is when people call, I will ask what led you to call today? Because then you're identifying like what triggered, what emotional trigger. Because like the accident may have been 6 months ago, and I'm just curious, Darryl, why did you call today? There's something prompt you, and then it connects with them. So I hope the listener, considers that when they talk to people who are suffering, because that connects on an emotional level. That's what this is about. This is people helping people. Let's not complicate it, right? A lot of lawyers, they don't really get it, and it's just like being a decent human being. It's not that complicated.
But it's interesting because I do travel and lecture and coach, and people pay me tons of money, but I always give this for free because no one does it. I can be in an audience. I can tell everybody I don't have any special gift, skill, or anything. How many lawyers truly, truly care about the people they help?
Yeah.
I mean, are they just a paycheck to you? It's going to show. If you truly want to make a difference in someone's life, then the empathy is the only way to go.
Yeah,
and it's the greatest sales in the world. I don't even call it sell. It's you service.
Just connection. You're
connecting. And think of it this way. Most people look at clients as a problem. Like they're calling, they're bothering me. Can you fathom for 30 seconds what it's like to be in their shoes? And if you can, then those calls are gifts from God, because if they didn't have, if the insurance company did what they were supposed to, none of us would have a job.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just think now you and I, as we're law firm owners, so what are we? We're visionaries. We have to project our vision to our staff, who in turn can project that to other people. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm still learning every day, but that's what separates us. And when I go places, I tell everybody, I'll give it to you for free, but you're not going to do it. And it's literally loving, caring, and having empathy and putting other people first. Because even my employees, most of them, they don't put the firm first. I mean, technically when we hire them, we say, put God first, your family, and get me 3. I'll be in the top 3, but you got to also give me some attention. But we as human beings, we're selfish. We always think of ourselves. So if you put others first, I promise it's a gift that I'm getting in return 1,000 times over.
Yeah, there's no question. And I just kind of piggyback on what you said. When a client calls the office, and if you mentioned sometimes it's like it could be tough, like, oh, the client's calling again. They know when the team member's pissed that they pick up on that. They know. So I always tell my team, like, hey, they're picking up on stuff. So if a client's being difficult, let them be difficult, right? I wouldn't take abuse and even if you're having a bad day, we'll let it go. But if you're being abusive, we're going to have to cut the cord here and move on. Probably human. But like I would encourage the lawyers on this call, make sure your staff doesn't give off a vibe of what now, John? What is it, Sally? They can't stand that, and they'll leave you, right? They'll go someplace else. And at your scale, I know I'm scaling too. It's hard, as you're talking about, to get that down the line, like make sure everyone is doing the way Darryl wants it to be done. It's real hard.
Right. Well, I can tell you what we changed that helped. The problem, if you haven't, and everybody's got intake, whether it's one person or whether you're the attorney of the intake, we always want to get them off the call for the next call.
Yeah.
So what we decided is we have an intake team. All their job is to connect at an emotional level, get 4 or 5 questions, and get them on board for us to help them. Then the call gets transferred to someone that can spend 30, 45 minutes, whatever they need. Because the problem in the old days is we're trying to get everybody off the call in 4 or 5 minutes, and people feel rushed and they don't feel respected. And so once we went to this system, hey, we'll talk all day if you like, then it's a total different mindset. So, and I know some firms start out with very few employees, so it's hard to do this, but I would, 2 or 3 things. I never want my lawyer to be my intake person because they're going to be thinking this case isn't big enough. I don't want this case. Let someone else handle it. So they're not helping the client. And I don't want someone that's going to be working the file to be rushed. So what I would rather do is get the client signed up. I don't want to have duplicate questions because they get frustrated too. But I want them to be transferred. And if this isn't a good time, tell me when it is. But we'll spend all the time in the world to make sure we answer every single question you have. And then we're going to get information that you can help us help you.
So how does that look like? So it's a short phone call on the front end and they're transferred to another intake person? How does that look?
Well, so I think we have 10 intake. And so the trick is if you market and advertise, you want to use numbers that the calls go right in the intake. The old way, we had them go through our front desk and they would screen it. Then they would transfer the intake. Then they would ask them the same questions and people were getting frustrated. So I'm a big believer. I got a couple hundred phone numbers. I'm big on toll-free numbers. I bought so many that I got my own rest board. So, but what we do is we right now, 8all7s that's one of the numbers we run ads on. So that goes right into our intake directly. So any call going in, we know it's a potential new case. And then from there, we'll spend, at 10 minutes. We're not in a hurry. We want them comfortable, but we're not going to inundate them with a ton of questions. We just want them tell us, you called, we're answering. If you're ready to go, if we're going to represent you, great. If you're ready to give us that next level, about 40 minutes questions, or we'll do it at a time that's convenient for you. I just don't want the first person that's trying to get a relationship to stay with them because I got to get the client realizing, okay, one department signed me up. Now I'm getting them to meet the team that I'm going to be working with for the next few years. Yeah. And I just think you need to separate it.
Well, I like that because you're kind of slowing it down because that first call is like, okay, let's get the info, but this limits what that person needs to do. And that's catering to the client's needs. And is that okay to do, John? Can we is it okay? Can we patch over to this person? But I like that
Yeah,
sort of
like you
simple.
just did. You
Yeah,
did the perfect thing, Chris. You asked for permission. Look, you can get
you have
anything in
to.
this world if you help enough people. Zig Ziglar said it. I'm not going to take credit. You can get anything in this world if you help enough people get what they want. And so even like if I'm in court, would it be okay? I mean, I think people love when you empower them, and that's what we do.
Yeah, yeah,
And we give the client the choice. Look, a client may not be ready to talk about it, especially when they're calling about wrongful, deaths.
yeah.
They don't want to be on the phone an hour. Let get your composure, and then, but you ask permission. I mean, that's why you're successful. I can tell you I don't know you from Adam, but just a few things you're doing, I'm like, you get it.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's just the little things, right? Because you and I geek out on intake. We study this stuff because we're spending a
Right.
fortune to get the phone to ring. So let's capture as many fish as possible.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you. So I want to be respectful of your time. Wrapping up here, in terms of business, what's your greatest challenge at your level of scale right now?
Wow, that's a hard question. Well, one of the areas I don't have many people leave me. I've got attorneys been with me 27 years. Well, I've been
Wow.
practicing 30. I've got people with me 27, 26, 25. They get complacent, and challenging people. COVID changed everything. I never would have worked remote. Now we have some 30, 40 people work remote. I mean, we got people outside the U.S., in the U.S., like, I got people living in Florida that are working on Kentucky cases. I think just getting the person not to be so complacent. Even my trial, we have pre-trial, we have a pre-lit and a lit, and I keep them separated. I'm very proud of this. After my accident, when I wanted to focus on trials, we took one of our buildings and spent a couple million, and we built a replica of an actual size courtroom. We had an architect go down and spend a couple weeks at the courthouse in Louisville, and they let us do this like when no one was using it. But I want them to go practice. And so going back to attorneys been with me 20 plus years, hey, we need to sharpen our skills. We need to get better. And the reason it's a challenge is they have so much work. They're not hungry. And so I got to keep them hungry, challenged, and not complacent, because every client deserves our best representation. So I just think for me, when we hire new attorneys, they're excited, but the ones been with me for a long time, it'd be like let's say an insurance defense firm, and they're a partner and they go in every day. After a while, how do you motivate them if they've been doing it 20 plus years?
No, I know.
It's hard. The other thing I stress, I want to be a training ground. We try to really train lawyers to try cases, and we got the great environment. But if they ever want their own practice, just tell me. I mean, because we can send you work. But if they want to come and try cases and not worry about the management, getting them, any of that, we're perfect ground. And so, it's like anything else. My marketing girl was talking to me today, Haley, my director, and she goes, Darryl, not everybody's going to stay with you forever. And I'm thinking, oh, that's right. I just feel like everybody, once they come, they're never leaving. But just finding ways to keep them motivated and hungry is a challenge.
My challenge is no one cares. No one cares as much as you do, right? This is your baby. It's your business, right? So how do you drive the bus not too hard, not too soft, so they don't burn out? So Darryl, look, I'm doing my best here. Because no one cares as much as me. So I'm always mindful of, because I've done that to lawyers. I've driven them out because it was like, dude, chill. I'm doing my best, right? Because I'm just like,
it's hard. I mean, look,
it's super hard.
I don't know what all. I faced this challenge. What I did do that might help others. You're right. With cell phone, I could show you. This is the big running joke. This is when you realize the difference between owners and operators. What's your screen time every day on your phone?
Too long.
What do you think?
Too long.
Well, look at mine.
Oh, that's a long time, man.
It's 19 hours. I because of technology, I sleep 4 or 5 hours a night, and I'm not working 19 hours in a row. What I'm doing is I might work 30 minutes, take an hour break. You're always working. I can't turn it off. But if any new lawyer or anybody is watching this, if you think being a lawyer means going to work 40 hours and leaving, you will never build a practice the way you want unless you put in the time and effort. And, I think of doctors, wouldn't it be great if law schools, I've gone back to lecture and I know I'm not popular. We need a residency program. I had my own because, not many people sit through 20 plus trials, second chair. I mean, I was given the gift, like I say, from heaven. But think of the doctors. I mean, they go and spend 2, 3, 4 years residency. So think of the hours they're putting in, and I think of new lawyers coming out working for defense firms. They have to bill 1,800 to 2,000 hours. Plaintiff attorneys, if you have your own practice, just know you're in for, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to put the time in because there's no magic potion, bullet. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's hard as hell.
I mean, think of you, I'm sure on the weekend, if you had a call where someone, a loved one of a client maybe was in the hospital, would you not go?
100%. I mean, you wear a totally different hat. It's a hard hat to wear. There's a lot of blessings with that hat, but there's a lot of burdens because there's 130 people relying on you to, make it happen. That's a lot. Your family. There's a lot of people riding,
You know what I'm thinking in today's world? It was hit me. I love to study people like Larry Bird. He was in my era and I never appreciated him. But then when I look back, wow, he made his teammates better. He got them all involved. I always ask this question. If I gave you the choice of building a soccer team from scratch, you had Ronaldo or Messi, which one would you take? I mean, you could argue for both. My answer is Messi because he makes everyone better. Ronaldo's phenomenal, and he's going to score 500 goals. Messi is just as happy getting assists as he is scoring a goal. Or, it's just – so I want to build a team and make everyone better. And, in fact, most attorneys are smarter than me when I hire them. I mean, it's just –
Me too.
I'm not the sharpest thing. But when we start working, I'll outwork them all because I'll work 20 hours a day, and a lot of them don't want to do it. But I think what my point on this is, if you're starting a practice today, you have something that you and I didn't have. You have technology. I mean, I had to go to the library, which I was terrible at, so I finally hired someone to do my research. Or if I'm going to court, I had someone write a brief because I'm not a good writer. Man, now, I mean, I can research on Google. I mean, I didn't have that. Yeah. So they have technology that we didn't have. My work keeps fighting me. They want me to get I don't really have a personal assistant because I can dictate and all of a sudden it's typed. I don't want someone, I like doing a lot of my own thing. Now I have people helping me and doing a lot of the work for me. But if you're starting a practice and technology and computer and man, you're starting with something you and I didn't start with.
No, 100%. And you just said something that really resonates with me is you'll outwork the average bear. You'll outwork the next guy. And I will too. I would only encourage the listener to start a practice if you are willing to outwork the average bear, right? Because that's what it takes. Because you're going to have to, go to the hospital on the weekend and sign up vacation. You're going to have to take that call at 2 a.m. or whatever it is. There's a price to pay for all this. This isn't free, right? This is hard.
But would you, if I ask you today, Chris, if you were starting over, what would you be in this world? Would you be a lawyer?
Oh, I'm where I should be.
Yeah.
I'm living in the space I should be because this gives me, like our conversation, this gives me energy. Like I geek out on this. I'm
telling you right now, if I start over again, I do the same damn thing. Yeah. I love what I do.
Yeah. I'm in it.
60 years old and I've still got, I know I'm going to live to 93. I got this premonition and I'm going to work up until I die. I just spent 10 days in Spain with my daughter's soccer team and
awesome.
But I was still every night I'm working. And how many people can say they love what they do? And I feel very blessed and fortunate. That's why I try to give back and share because if everybody in this world, I don't care what you are, whether you're a priest, a nun, a garbage collector, we're all human beings and we all have God in us and we all have special talents. I think everybody has to share whatever their special talent is.
Yeah.
I found mine is the personality and love and compassion. And so if I have something, I want 10 people to have it too. I don't want to be just me. And I just think we got the greatest profession in the world and I wouldn't choose anything else.
Yeah, it's hard as hell, but it's worth it. It's very rewarding. We get to call the shots, do what we want to do. Have amazing people supporting us. We support them. We're super lucky. This is my final question. What is your greatest success in life so far?
Having kids.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, You know, I always got to be careful. My godfather didn't have kids; they chose, and I was like I was their child. But I used to work 90, 100 hours a week before I had kids. Having kids was definitely the greatest achievement. I mean, I've had a tough road because I've struggled a lot, and I had to work, had to outwork because I wasn't going to outsmart people. But I don't mind any of that. But there's things that I always do a little different. But being a parent, I think, is the greatest treasure in the world, and I think that's my greatest achievement. It beats, we started a firm, we've done a couple billion, helped all these people, but just I can say I know I was in the delivery room with each, and just watch them come in this world if I die tomorrow, I'm a blessed man.
I love it, man. That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, that's really all that matters. Darryl, how can people get in touch with you?
I'll give you my cell. It's the easiest way. 2 ways. My cell phone, and you can put it up there as area code 502 817 8 minus 1 is 7 1000. 502 817 1000. And then my email is pretty easy. If you can spell my name, not everybody spells Darryl right, but it's DARRYL at wewin.com.
Darryl, I appreciate it. It's inspiring.
Love all thank you. Thank you for having me. This is I'm like you. I can talk law 24 hours.
Yeah, man. We're both junkies. I mean, we're both in this. This is what we do. But thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right. That's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel.